Uh, Madam Speaker, I want to support and say the Finance and Budget Committee has done a tremendous job, a good job. For this, I think this report is well done, well captured, Madam Speaker. I think apart from the Senate County Public Accounts Committee, the second busiest committee is Finance and Budget, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have seen credentials and the role of SRC, Madam Speaker. Let me say the following. Of course, under Article 230, the role of SRC cannot be gainsaid. It is very critical because now the decision of review of civil servants' salaries, which we are being told today, Madam Speaker, out of the revenue we collect as a country, Madam Speaker, 1.1 trillion goes to public servants in this republic. Therefore, the role SRC plays is very critical, Madam Speaker. And I've seen SRC has not been taking lightly the comments we make about their work. I have even suggested in the past that SRC should be a part-time commission because their work is not 8 to 5, Madam Speaker. Their work is to review periodically the salaries and remuneration and personal emoluments of public servants and state officers across this country, as was envisaged in Article 230. In fact, we should be looking at possibility of reducing the number of SRC commissioners in this republic, Madam Speaker, so that we are also, because if we are spending 1.1 trillion on salaries, personal emoluments for state officers, Madam Speaker, for civil servants, it is unfair because these civil servants, majority of Kenyans are not employed by a government, Madam Speaker. And therefore, even as we approve or as we transmit this motion, Madam Speaker, for the Minister of Treasury, of course, as we wait for the report of the National Assembly on the vetting exercise, of course, the CS nominee of Treasury, John Badingongo, should, if they get opportunity, to ensure that these people we approve give value to the offices that we are talking about. And therefore, in fact, SRC, Madam Speaker, has not been helpful in advice. By the way, if the reading, Madam Speaker, and you are a very senior lawyer in this republic, Madam Speaker, and Secretary General Emeritus, who ensured that you midwife the current government, Madam Speaker, it cannot be gainsaid. The work of SRC is to advise. I don't know where they got these powers. They have arrogated themselves powers to set the salary. It's not their business, Madam Speaker. And we have sat, Madam Speaker, they have never assisted us. Look, for example, at UHC, Universal Health Coverage in turns. We spend hours here. They told us they will work with the Council of Governors to confirm under permanent and pensionable terms of UHC in turns, Madam Speaker. Who served this country as true heroes when we have a COVID of 2020? They didn't assist. We have had push and pull over the issue of members of County Assembly, the MCS, Madam Speaker. Their personal emoluments, their welfare, Madam Speaker, but they have done nothing to ensure, Madam Speaker. And you know, under the labor laws, the law does not allow anybody to have their salary cut. It is never practiced anywhere in the world, Madam Speaker. We have told them, Madam Speaker, can you advise the country on the of members of County Assembly, Madam Speaker? We have insisted, we have sat through the AMCA, Madam Speaker. SRC has been no show. We have sat with a CAF, Madam Speaker. We have even, you remember, the intern doctors that demonstrated for the longest time possible. SRC could not advise the country, Madam. It is their domain to give a practical, implementable with the current, Madam. You saw the embarrassment that they wanted to put members of, and I suspect SRC was part of the people who are inciting Gen Z in this republic, Madam. Because when there were protests in these countries, SRC went and issued a circular of increasing salaries of members of parliament and other state officers. If we had not rejected, Madam Speaker, tungesalamiwa with these agencies, they have embarrassed us. It means they are not having their work cut out. They don't follow what they should be doing as SRC, Madam Speaker. It was embarrassing. They embarrassed the presidency. They embarrassed the state officers, members of parliament. When the country is going through hard economic times, Madam Speaker, why would you want to increase the salary? And it embarrasses us, Madam. We in fact, I propose that through your office and through the head of public service, SRC must give us unreservedly apology to the country of the Kenya and state officers for putting us into embarrassment and setting us against coalition course with the great people of Kenya, Madam Speaker. We have Kenyans who are earning less, Madam Speaker. Why don't you look at that? Every time Central Kotu, and you saw Francis Atwoli the other day when they're celebrating Labor Day. What is about the minimum wage? That is when we need the wisdom of SRC. It is not their business to look at what members of parliament and state officers should do. They should be looking at the minimum wage, the Wanjikus of this world, the Matzayos of this world, Madam Speaker, the Kiprotich of this world who do not have anything minimum wage, Madam Speaker. And that is why today as we talk, the allegations we are hearing, the governor of Nandi can hire young people, Madam Speaker, and give them helmets and give them the sticks, hockey stick, horse stick, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the sticks, the djembe sticks, to walk around and around in Kapsabet town as we talk, Madam Speaker, harassing law-abiding citizens because members of public wanted to go and occupy his office and ask billions of shillings, close to more than 50 billion that has been allocated to Nandi. Where is it? But he has gone ahead and hired, Madam Speaker, people carrying djembes, carrying funny crude weapons, walking around Kapsabet town, Madam Speaker. As we talk, it is shame for a governor to use the resource, and Governor Sang must be called out. Instead of providing drugs to Kapsabet County Referral Hospital, he is busy providing djembe sticks to young people to go and harass others, Madam Speaker. And I don't fear to, I am embarrassed of the Nandi County security team, Madam Speaker. In Namgoi, in the town, criminals are walking around with djembe sticks, and the county commander and the county security team is sitting unless they have been compromised by Governor Sang, Madam Speaker. It is very unfortunate. It is so sad. We go and tax Kenyans, give counties money. The governors misuse that money for their own selfish gains, Madam Speaker. We cannot allow this country, Madam Speaker. It is very unfortunate, Madam Speaker. And I want to challenge the Acting Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kanja, to tell us why would the police officers and county commander and county security team are sitting while young people, criminals hired by the governor, are walking around with the djembe sticks, harassing young men and women, pregnant mothers, the disabled in Kapsabet town in a clear, broad daylight, Madam Speaker. And yet we are struggling here. As we talk today, the ECD teachers of Nandi County are supposed to go on strike because they have not been paid. But when you hire hooligans, the county has money to hire, but they can't buy drugs. They can't pay ECD teachers very well, Madam Speaker. The roads are impassable in Nandi as we talk, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, as a house, and I'll be bringing a comprehensive statement to have the Inspector General of Police. We are doing what we call in quotes bad manners in this country, Madam Speaker. Because if you are allowing criminals to walk around with djembe sticks, with crude weapons, in a big town like Kapsabet, Madam Speaker, what are you selling the rest of the country, Madam Speaker? I will be challenging, Madam Speaker, and therefore, we must agree that even as we approve, we pass anything, Madam Speaker, in this house, we must ensure, Madam Speaker, we speak truth to the power. And governors should understand that they don't exist, they don't have powers that they can overrun the police, Madam Speaker, that they can overrun the security apparatus. Unless you are telling the country you no longer trust, Madam Speaker, under Article 37, the right to picket and demonstrate. You saw there were national protests. I didn't hear the president directing or taking people to street to counter demonstrate. In fact, the president said, let people demonstrate and be given security as per Article 37 and 38. Unless Kapsabet town, Madam Speaker, is in another country. But if it is in the country that is Kenya, just like Kilifi, just like Mombasa, just like our neighbors in Kakamega, just like in Homa Bay, just like in Tana River, Madam Speaker, then there is a big problem, Madam Speaker. We should be called out, and I want to challenge the Inspector General of Police acting, even as he comes for vetting. We must see action as at now to ensure that we protect the right of Kenyans. Why would you somebody have a problem? The other day, Madam Speaker, we normally have demonstrators here at the gate. You as the Speaker has never ordered anybody to be clobbered or being harassed for coming to Parliament to present their petition, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the SRC under Article 230, even in vetting. Madam Speaker, I was surprised because I saw members of National Assembly and it is unanswered. If somebody challenged me, I can produce. When the message was read of vetting of Inspector General of Police, I was embarrassed that some members of National Assembly, and it is in the interest of my minority leader, Madam Speaker, Senator Retired Justice Matzai, that some members of National Assembly said Senate does not have a role in vetting of Inspector General of Police. Which constitution are they reading? Which law? Security is a shared function, Madam Speaker. The security is a shared function, just like a disaster preparedness emergency. I was wondering, Madam Speaker, and I always get shocked. Which country are we in when members of National Assembly contest the vetting? Madam Speaker, if members of National Assembly embarrass themselves with what they did, they should not use that Senate to redeem themselves. They should redeem themselves. Why were they bash and attack Senate? They attacked us on conflict of interest bill. It is unanswered. They didn't want Senate to be part of the Inspector General of Police vetting. It is the Constitution. The law is very clear under Article 93. Parliament is the Senate and the National Assembly. Security is a shared function. You cannot say, and that is why we fought in this Parliament. And I know people who have stayed longer, like Senator Matzai and Senator Kalwale, will tell you, we wanted even governors to sit in County Security Committee. Because if a problem occurs today, you will need that governor to be part of security restored within that county or within that constituency, Madam. We fought for long. So it was embarrassing. Even senior house leaders, like my majority whip, Silvana Sosoro, I thought they should not bear, Madam Speaker, and the answer can bear me witness. And that is why, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, when I saw even vetting of CSS, I know the report is being written, Madam Speaker, but we can make general observations because it was an open process, Madam Speaker. You find cases of vetting of cabinet nominees, Madam Speaker. Even the chair was talking more than the nominees and making just comments, Madam Speaker, and making funny comments. How do you tell a nominee, don't bring your bedroom matters before this committee? Is that even a valid question to ask? Instead of asking how many taxes you are paid for this country, what is your ability, what is your competence? Madam Speaker, I'm impressed by a number of nominees. One person who impressed me is former Governor of Mombasa, Ali Hassan Joho. Despite getting a D-, he is having 2 masters and is going for PhD. Which inspiration would you want? That inspiration is the best. It means in life you must work hard. So from that vetting, at least the young people who do not perform well, people who went to Kumbaru, Madam Speaker. I know Senator Kalwala has not been having kind words towards me, but the inspiration of Governor Ali Hassan Joho, the nominee of mining and blue economy, Madam Speaker, even shocked the country with the grasp of Queen's language, with that clear thought process, Madam Speaker. I think that was the observation, Madam Speaker. Another nominee that impressed me was the former MP of Garissa Town, Aden Duale, Madam Speaker. I was happy with his honesty. He said he doesn't receive phone calls because members of parliament are corrupt. Anyway, the chair did not decide to correct, so it is unanswered. Minister Duale was an honest man. He said he does not receive our phone calls as members of parliament because we are corrupt, Madam Speaker. But no one corrected. It is unanswered. We can print it and bring it here, Madam Speaker. So we need honest. Even Madam Speaker, Eric Mureithi, that was having is what 32 million. I want to agree and challenge the agency that Eric Mureithi, Madam Speaker, if approved, will be is only 32 million worth. He doesn't have a car. He's a young man with a vision. That should encourage, Madam Speaker, how we perform as a country. We should believe in the people that we have, Madam Speaker. So even as we did vetting, and I'm proposing this, Madam Speaker, going into the future, can you direct when our committees does vetting, like finance and budget? I have noticed in our committee rooms, Madam Speaker, there is no video recording. It is only answered. I wish and I request And I wish the commissioners or the commissioner is here. At least every committee room should have a video recording so that we have the answer and video recording so that some of us, Madam Speaker, some of these videos that are being vetted, Madam Speaker, can have opportunity to be able to go through, Madam Speaker. So the exercise that has been carried, we hope when the report will be tabled, I think, Madam Speaker, going into the future, let us ensure the track record, the capacity and ability, Madam Speaker, goes into the future, Madam Speaker. So we believe the vetting that was being done, and I want to request, Madam Speaker, I don't know how your office will look. I want to request the way we saw vetting in National Assembly with cabinet nominees. I don't know, we should have structured questions to be used in vetting, like the way the Finance and Budget Committee, Senator Kalwale is here, should tell us what would happen, Madam Speaker. Because the questions that were being asked, Madam Speaker, some are embarrassing, some were supposed to juxtapose, Madam Speaker. Let us ensure, even as we wait for the report, and I hope we'll get the report from the National Assembly when they table it on Wednesday or Thursday, Madam Speaker. That report, we should get it and ensure that it comes to place. Of course, Madam Speaker, I wouldn't have comments on nominee of sports because that is transferring incompetence from roads to sports, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, going into the future, we must agree under Article 230 on SRC that let us approve.
Senator Cherargei, I had given a direction regarding commenting on a process which has not been completed by the other house. I gave that direction to Senator Gloria, and it should have clearly informed your debate. It seems not to have been informed by that. Yeah. And I now guide you not to touch that process until Speaker, it's determined, yes, and a report done by the other house. Because the integrity of that house is equally protected as the integrity. The process they are doing is equally protected, just like the process is being done by this house. So please withdraw that.
Madam Speaker, there is what we call fair comment in the fair administration process. And I'm just making a general comment. I have not mentioned anybody's name, unless you know that person. Have I? I have not.
The nominee is clearly known, Senator Cherargei.
Madam Speaker, I think the standing orders...
Every member would take judicial notice of who the nominee in respect of the Ministry of Sport is. So it is safest to do what Senator Gloria did, leave that process until it bakes fully, so that you don't interfere with the
I leave that process. I leave that process there. But Madam Speaker, for the benefit of the House, I would want to refer the House to Speaker Mate's case on the decision of his removal as the MPO Speaker. If you read the principle of the High Court, it talks about such instance. But I stand guided by your directions. Finally, Madam Speaker, and you know, I might be your voter in future. So you need to handle me very nicely also, Madam Speaker, as you try to get back to be the Secretary General of UDA. Madam Speaker, so I wondered Article 230.
Senator Boni, what is your point of order?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I've been listening to your guidance. I do really need further clarification. Your comment on Oroba, and now your comment on Senator Cherargei. In view of the centrality and the importance of public participation, does it therefore mean that nominees are not protected from the kind of speech that Gloria made and the kind of speech Cherargei has made? They are making a fair comment. They will not vote. It is up to the National Assembly to vote as they care, but to get as much information about those candidates as they can, including the remark that has been made by the Senator for Nandi. It's a question of opinion. If public participation is allowed, he should be free to say what he thinks about that candidate to help Parliament to make the proper decision. Please guide us. I think I'm lost.
Honorable Senator, thank you for seeking that clarification. The difference is that those nominees are already sitting and have the opportunity to respond to any claim that will be raised by the interview panel. In this House, the nominees are not here yet. So if any issue is raised, they don't have the advantage. So we'll be breaching their rules of natural justice when they are going through an important process. So it is important that when such is raised before the determination is made, at least they be present to respond to it. And since they are not, and the report is not yet out. If the report was out and a verdict has already been rendered by this, then it will be easy to debate and it will be easy to accept as a public record once the report is out. So I still guide that since they cannot defend themselves, we allow the National Assembly to complete the process while we await the report. We will still have a chance to debate that report. I believe that. Thank you. You can finish, Senator Chira.
Madam Speaker, I want to wish well the two candidates. I know the law says President will appoint one. And the committee, of course, we hope to see those SRC members before this committee, Madam Speaker, but to support and ask the House to support and ask the SRC, if one of them, because there are two, if either of them succeed, Madam Speaker, they should assist the country in advising on the issue of ballooning, Madam Speaker, not only national wage, but also county wage. The only county that is below, Madam Speaker, because I have advantages that is below 35% is Turkana County. The rest are beyond 35 as per the regulations on wage bill. We need also to work with County Public Service Board to bring that to an end. With those many remarks, Madam Speaker, and in suggesting remarks, I therefore support the report, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kajuang Moses Otieno.
Madam Speaker, I rise to contribute to this motion. Whenever we give a task to committees of the House, it is our belief that they prosecute and execute in the best interest of the House, in the best interest of the nation, and in accordance with the Constitution of Kenya. Madam Speaker, I have requested for disclosure on the CVs of the applicants that the committee considered, because in the report, the committee has mentioned that there were very many applicants. There were 48 applicants. And then there was a short list of about 10, and then about 15, and then 2 persons were picked from that list. And Madam Speaker, I take note that when I look at the short list, we have 2 ladies who topped the list. And that's quite impressive to find that 2 female applicants were considered to be the best. Now, the law requires that the House nominates a man and a woman. And as a result, Madam Speaker, I can see from this report that there is a female applicant who came from Mombasa County, who was number 2, and that is Mohammed Nahida Athman, who got 71.29% score, higher than Mohammed Aden Abdi, the male whom the lot has fallen on, who got 70.29. Mr. Speaker, when you are debating this kind of motion, it's important that the clerks give us the full information, the full picture, because I would be very, very interested in seeing the CV of Lynette Washiali Muganda from Kakamega, the CV of Mohammed Nahida Athman, and the CV of Mohammed Aden Abdi. Madam Speaker, the Senate has got a role in constitutional commissions. Now, this is part of it, and this is a very, very important role that we play. How I wish that our colleagues knew how important this role is, and how hard we have fought for the Senate to be involved in appointments and financing of independent commissions. The approval of the Inspector General of Police is another solemn duty that this House must undertake, because the Constitution requires Parliament collectively to make that decision. The Commission on Revenue Allocation is another constitutional commission where our input is required. The Parliamentary Service Commission is another constitutional commission where the Senate is involved. Madam Speaker, our role is not only limited to vetting and making proposals. Our role, as per the Constitution, extends to funding. And when it comes to funding, Article 249(3) of the Constitution says, and Madam Speaker, I like reading this out because sometimes people wonder why the Senate wants to be involved in the affairs or in the financial matters of independent commissions. Article 249(3) says,
what is your point of order, Senator Gloria?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to bring to your attention under the Standing Order 246, under the Standing Order on broadcasting as well, Madam Speaker, there has been a recurring incident every time I speak in this. Not every time, but at least 3 times when I've been speaking, Madam Speaker. It is an intentional sabotage that when I'm at the floor, somehow, for a very peculiar reason, the online stream is tampered with, Madam Speaker. And I am speaking this confidently because I've actually walked out to find out, Madam Speaker. When I was seconding this motion, which is a very important motion, Madam Speaker, you can go and confirm and ascertain that they actually went offline. And they are claiming that there is some technicalities and issue, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you look at our standing order, and if I can just direct you to the Standing Order 245-2 and number 3, when it says, when broadcasting the proceedings of the Senate on television, the following guidelines shall apply. The camera shall focus on the senator recognized by the chair until the senator has finished speaking, Madam Speaker. I want to raise to the attention of the Speaker and to this House that whatever monkey business is happening, Madam Speaker, must come to an end.
Senator Gloria.
Because
Senator Gloria, what standing order are you?
245. 245, Madam Speaker, talks of broadcasts of Senate proceedings.
Yes.
And if you could go further to page 238 where it fleshes out, under 3 on television broadcasting, Madam Speaker.
230?
The page is 238. The standing order is 245, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this issue was even raised before by, I think, Senator Eddie Okech, in terms of the quality and the provisions and all that. Madam Speaker, what I want to raise is that I've realized when I am making my submissions, Madam Speaker, there is somebody there behind trying to make sure that Kenyans don't hear what I am saying, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I protest. And this is against our standing orders and against my privileges and my rights as a senator, Madam Speaker. I call for an investigation, and whoever is found culpable must be taken to that same powers and privileges committee that they want to send all senators every time, Madam Speaker. It is a shame that people who should be assisting in actually ensuring that Kenyans get everything that is happening in this House are actually being used by cartels of this House to sabotage my message.
Senator Gloria Oroba, you cannot reference to cartels without substantiating whether there are cartels in the House. So you'll be required to substantiate that. And then, Senator Gloria, if you have a point of order. Senator Enoch Wambua, you have a point of order?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, due respect, Senator Gloria stood on a point of order when Senator Kajwang was contributing. And I've been asking myself, what was out of order with what Senator Kajwang was presenting and the connection between what he was presenting on and what she has spoken about. Madam Speaker, this is also a house of record. And to draw a line between issues that are administrative and issues that are for debate on the floor. Speaker, I say this as a leader in this House, and really, there is wisdom in what I'm saying. If we are to deal with administrative issues on the floor...
Senator Gloria, can you allow the senator to be heard in silence? You got your chance. Allow him, I said allow him to finish what is...
So, Speaker, if we are to deal with administrative issues on the floor, then what will happen is that every time we have an issue with the Secretariat, then we bring it on the floor. We will not look good. This is a house of record. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I will hear Senator Joyce, and then I'm going to give a direction.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Senator Gloria, wait for your chance.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would want to really echo the sentiments of Honorable Wambua, as far as I'm in agreement with Honorable Gloria, I would also want to humbly request Honorable Gloria to do a formal letter, a formal complaint that will go through the legal way, say that we have it in this floor of the house, because the issue that she's raising is touching on our staffs, and they don't have the room to come and defend themselves here. So the only way out is maybe to ask Honorable Gloria to do a formal letter, a complaint letter. Then from there is when we can, the office can be able to address the issue. So, and I would want to say that because it will not look proper when the motion that was turned, which was also seconded by Honorable Gloria, the Honorable Kachwang was on the floor trying to really prosecute the matter, and this issue now that is affecting Honorable Gloria and the staffs is brought in the middle of nowhere. So, Madam Speaker, I would like to request that she does a formal complaint. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Gloria, an issue has been raised by Senator Wambua on the nexus between your point of order to the discussion of the debate that had been undertaken by Senator Kajwang. Is there any nexus in like half a minute so that I can give a direction on the matter?
Madam Speaker, this is not about me as an individual. And this is where we go wrong. I have even quoted a standing order. This standing order was not tailor-made for Gloria Uroba. This is an issue about broadcasting, an issue about transparency, Madam Speaker. This motion that Senator Kajwang is actually contributing to was seconded by me as a senator at the floor of the House. This is an issue, and why I raised it mid his contribution is that we don't know if the same could be happening to his contributions, Madam Speaker, because I didn't even know that it was happening to me until I've stepped out and confirmed that indeed it was happening. So this is an issue not about me and Secretariat. This is an issue about the transparency of the processes of this House, Madam Speaker. And may I even dare say, Madam Speaker, that if they keep singling out the complaints that I bring to this floor as an issue about Gloria, Madam Speaker, first they came for the Jews, then they came for who? There'll be nobody left in this House, Madam Speaker. So we must address this very important issue.
Thank you. Senator Gloria, your point is heard. And let me now give a direction on it. You have raised an issue on broadcasting, and if I recall very well, this issue was still raised last week, and broadcasting is important. However, as a chair right now, I may not be able to know what has happened with regard to the broadcasting, and the only way the House would get to know what has transpired as you were seconding the motion would be for the clerk's dispatch desk to ensure that we have a report on whether the broadcasting was happening, the transmission was happening, or whether it was not happening. As at last week, the House had technical challenges, genuine technical challenges on transmission of the broadcast. And what I would guide Senator Gloria to also consider is the fact that as at last week, it had nothing to do with Gloria or any specific senator. It was an equipment challenge, and I believe the Secretariat is able to give a report and a guide as to whether we still have the delayed transmission. And also, when you are raising such an issue, Senator Gloria, you raise it as an issue that is affecting the House. You don't have to always personalize it. It has nothing to do with you. This technical transmission was also an issue that was raised last week by several senators, if I may recall, whether it's last week or the other week, but it's an issue that the Secretariat desk has been working on. So give a report whether transmission was done, and it can be reported in the next session. And I think that should be the guide that will help us in that issue. Senator Kajwang, you can resume the debate.
Madam Speaker, I hope you'll allow me to recover the lost time because it was not related
As
to the
your
motion
time was
before us.
paused, you will not lose your minutes.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, let me go back to this because this is an extremely important undertaking that this Senate is called upon to do on behalf of county governments and on behalf of the nation. Madam Speaker, when you bring this motion for delegations and for senators to approve or reject, you must provide the full information and full disclosure. As I had said earlier, that there were 48 applicants who were narrowed down to 15. And the committee has given us the names of 2 applicants for consideration and for approval. Madam Speaker, I cannot make a decision in the absence of the details of the qualifications of those other applicants who had been shortlisted. In this list, Madam Speaker, I see Mr. Silas Otieno Owiti from Homa Bay, who scored 59.71%. At least give me a glimpse onto his CV. At least give me a glimpse, give me the notes so that I can see from the minutes how the performance was. And Madam Speaker, when it came to the appointment of Dr. Amoth, which is a motion before the House, I am seeing annexures and minutes and all the details of considerations of the committee. But when it comes to the discussion of these 2 nominees to the SRC, I have even requested in the official WhatsApp group for the annexure that carries the CVs, the annexure that carries the conversations that led to this decision. Madam Speaker, we must be careful because I've been through this exercise. I do recall about 6 years ago when this House was called upon to make a similar decision. There were even accusations of favor. There were even accusations of tribalism. There were even accusations that the committees were operating with an end in mind. And Madam Speaker, at that time, some of the applicants were former senators. They were former colleagues. It was very sad when some of them, a former senator who has been in this House for 5 years, was being disqualified for lack of experience. If you have been a senator for 5 years, or a member of National Assembly for 5 years, what other experience do you need to get a job in this country? What other experience do you need to undertake a role in a constitutional commission? And Madam Speaker, I want to be convinced that such considerations were not made in this case. And it would be important that before we take the vote, that we get the full disclosure of the minutes and the conversations and the resolutions and any dissenting opinion, if there was a dissenting opinion of members of that committee, Madam Speaker, because the adoption schedule, it has been approved by 5 out of 9. I would like to hear what the other 4 had to say with respect to the final decision that has been brought to this House. Madam Speaker, I am not imputing any improper motive. I am just asking for full information so that I can make a decision on the motion that is before us.
What is the point of order? Your point of information,
sorry,
would you like to be informed by Senator Boni Halwale?
Madam Speaker, out of respect, I would wish to listen to Senator Boni Halwale.
Senator Halwale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the concerns by the Senator of Homa Bay are right and justified. It is true that what you are looking for is both on the Hansard recording of the proceedings of the committee, but it's also true that it is part of the report which has not been brought here. What you have here is the executive summary of the report. We could not have done all that we did for all the candidates. Number 2, Madam Speaker, the issue he has raised about the fear that there could have been tribalism and stuff like that, it will help. We had a marking scheme. The nearest way the committee approached the issue of how to handle the great tribes of Kenya was the constitutional requirement of regional balancing as to how much one was getting for academic endowment. If you had a bachelor's degree, you scored less than master's degree, and so on up to PhD. I beg to inform.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank Senator Halwale. Indeed, as a member of this committee, if there is important information that has not been brought before this House, then this motion should be stood down. I am looking at a similar report of a nomination for Dr. Amoth, Madam Speaker. And I'm looking at the iPad here. There is an annexure that is 244 pages. 244 pages. It has minutes. It has details. Why is this different? And it is a similar process where we are being called upon to exercise our constitutional and statutory duty to make approvals or appointments to constitutional commissions. This committee then, this motion should be deferred, and this conversation should stop at this moment until the committee brings us a full report, Madam Speaker. The report we have is 28 pages. 28 pages. How do we know that justice was served? If it was not the respect that I had for Senator Khalwale, how would this House have been informed of that criteria? Madam Speaker, as I've said, I've gone through this process. And this particular process, we came to some conclusions. It was established that a committee had dismissed a former senator on the basis of lack of experience. And I've kept asking that once you have been elected as a senator or nominated as a senator, you have sat in this House approving budgets, approving appointments, writing laws, you have sponsored laws. How can a committee then come and tell you that you do not have requisite experience to become a member of a commission? And that's why we're insisting we need to see those annexures to see whether those kind of arguments found their way in the decision of this committee. Madam Speaker, I will leave it to the leadership of the House and to your wisdom to decide whether we are proceeding with adequate information and whether you're doing the right things. But let me make certain broad comments, Madam Speaker, as that point is still under consideration. That our role does not end with appointment. Our role extends to funding for constitutional commissions. And Madam Speaker, we have been weak and we have allowed that function or that role to go to the National Assembly when Parliament or when the Constitution clearly states that that is the role of Parliament. I want to read Article 249(3), which says that Parliament, and not National Assembly and not Senate, that Parliament shall allocate adequate funds to enable each commission and independent office to perform its functions, and the budget of each commission and independent office shall be a separate vote. End of quote. Madam Speaker, the word there is Parliament, and it is not National Assembly. We have a responsibility, we have a duty to be engaged in the budgeting and resource allocation for constitutional commissions. It is an embarrassment when the Office of the Auditor General is running around begging for funds and saying that the National Assembly has arbitrarily trimmed down their allocations. It is an embarrassment when other commissions like the EACC come to us and say that, yes, Senate, you have referred 146 matters to us, but give us the resources to undertake our job. How can the Senate expect the EACC to carry out investigations in 47 county executives and in 47 county assemblies, and yet the Senate is not involved in allocation of budget to that commission? Madam Speaker, we must rise above our partisan political formations and stand for this House. When this House insisted on vetting the Inspector General of Police, I was in this House and Senator Boni Khalwale was there. The initial mischief was to process and fast-track it through the National Assembly. This House stood up, and eventually the IG became a client of both houses. We must also insist that we give effect to Article 249(3). Otherwise, these commissions will have no respect for the Senate. These commissions will not follow up any matter that has been referred to them by the Senate, because he who pays the piper who pays the piper plays the tune or calls the tune. So if they know it's the National Assembly that is involved in their resource allocation, even if there was competing recommendations, you tell EACC to pursue something, they will tell you they're still dealing with the recommendations of the National Assembly, because that's where their bread is buttered. Madam Speaker, let me talk about the interview process. We have the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. Madam Speaker, this is a statutory instrument, or this is law that relates to how Parliament shall conduct itself when it comes to constitutional and statutory appointments. And Madam Speaker, I do not agree with the committee on paragraph 13, page 16. Madam Speaker, I disagree with the committee when the committee makes reference to Standing Order 76 and 77. This interview should have been done in line with the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, the same instrument that the National Assembly has been using to vet the cabinet secretaries. And Madam Speaker, the reason why I say so is that the Public Appointments and Parliamentary Approval Act provides great detail on how this exercise should be conducted. Madam Speaker, that act says that Parliament shall focus on academic credentials, professional training, experience, personal integrity, and background of those who have been proposed to take up constitutional and statutory appointments. Being a member of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is a constitutional appointment. And so, Madam Speaker, how I wish the committee would have made reference to the Act of Parliament that is currently in existence rather than to Standing Order 76 and 77. That act, if it would be properly implemented, and not with the kind of mischief that we have seen in past vetting for cabinet secretaries. Madam Speaker, there's a question that has always come up, the question of net worth. And I can tell you that many a times when you are vetting nominees to the cabinet, Kenyans do not remember what they said they're going to do. Because there is one thing for them to aspire to do something, but there's also the established government policies. I have seen some cabinet secretaries say how they are going to be publicly spirited and how they are going to do things differently. But let's remember that there are already budgets that have been established. There's already a president who is in office. And so if you come with views that are at variance with those of government, the existing budgets, existing plans, and the personal views of the president, then you are just going to get frustrated. But the question of net worth is one that has animated the nation. I saw a computation of the net worth of the nominees that are currently before the House, without getting to the substance of the matter, to be 10 billion. And Kenyans are offended. Kenyans are offended. What is this magic that politicians play that makes them wealth that serious corporate organizations cannot make? Madam Speaker, before I got into politics, I was in the financial services sector. You will find an insurance company collects revenue of 4 billion Kenya shillings. And at the end of the day, it makes a profit of 50 million. A technical profit. That is once the premiums have been collected and the claims have been paid. And that is an institution that perhaps has employed 200 people, that has got branches throughout the country, that is integrated, that is creating a lot of opportunities and contributions to the GDP of this country, that is paying taxes. At the end of the day, they'll probably make 50 million as an underwriting profit. What is this thing that members of parliament do that generates them the kind of profits that even insurance companies cannot generate? And it is becoming an insult to the people of this country. The majority who cannot afford, the majority hustlers, we are building for them 2 million houses, 3 million houses, and then we are proclaiming that we are billionaires. How will a billionaire understand the needs and aspirations of that person whose biggest wealth is a 2 million house? Madam Speaker, if we were faithful to this process, even these applicants who are here, we should see an annexure showing how much they are paid in taxes. If I'm worth 300 million Kenya shillings, Madam Speaker, the taxes I pay must be different from the taxes paid by somebody else Kenya shillings, by someone else who just relies on a salary and has got nothing of value because their liabilities exceed their assets. Madam Speaker, another question that must be asked is a question of conflict of interest. In the substantive act that I've referred to, there is a question on conflict of interest. If my family is doing business, perhaps in the ICT sector, and then I get into government as a minister for ICT, I must disclose and I must lay out before Parliament how I'm going to prevent potential conflict of interest. In fact, in serious jurisdictions, once you get into certain constitutional and statutory positions, you put your assets or your wealth in a trust so that you are no longer directly involved. And so you are not compromised when it comes to procurement and provision of opportunities. We never ask those questions. Another question that we are required to ask under the Public Appointments Act is, have you ever been charged in a court of law? Madam Speaker, you don't hear those questions being asked. Another question we are supposed to be asked is, have you ever been advancedly mentioned in any report before Parliament? And Madam Speaker, all the 47 county governors have been adversely mentioned in reports before this House. And if we are taking seriously the reports of Parliament, which we must take seriously because we are Parliament, we must ask ourselves, during your tenure as governor for Tana River, did the Auditor General ever raise queries? And did the Public Accounts Committee bring a report to the House? And did the House adopt a report that recommended your investigation and prosecution? You find a lot of people in public offices. There are reports we have adopted here, but when we are vetting them, we never ask those questions. And that is why, Madam Speaker, I must insist that this process should not be done in accordance with Standing Order 76 and 77. This process should be done in accordance with the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. Let me finalize by saying that if we are going to see the annexures and satisfy ourselves that Madam Lynette Washiali Muganda and Mr. Mohamed Aden Abdi indeed were the best of the best, I will have no problem supporting this motion. But I will still need to be convinced to see the annexures, the CVs, the resumes, the minutes, and the proceedings of those meetings. Madam Speaker, the nominees, once they get to office, let them remember that they are there to represent the interests of county governments. They are not there to represent the interests of the executive. And that is why it is the Senate that has been called upon to nominate them. There are two nominees. There is one from the Parliamentary Service Commission, which is part of Parliament, but there's a specific nominee of the Senate to represent county governments. Let them remember they're representing county governments and not their stomachs and not the national executive. Let them focus on how they can help county governments to reduce their wage bill to go below 35%, because right now the general rate is 40% plus. Let them focus on building synergies with the county public service boards, county assembly service board, public service commission, so that we can have a better way of managing human resources in counties. Madam Speaker, the national government has given out a system called IPPD. IPPD, Integrated Personnel Payroll Management System. It only deals with the payroll aspect. Payroll is not HR management. Issues of recruitment, issues of appraisal, issues of promotion, issues of leave management, all those are not being managed in any system. And so we encourage these nominees to build those kind of synergies.
You have 1 minute to finish that sentence.
To build those synergies and to involve the Institute of Human Resource Management. The greatest resource that we have in county governments is a human resource. Let these two nominees go there knowing that they are going to look at the interests of county governments and not the interests of the presidency or of a broad-based government. Madam Speaker, my decision on support will be dependent upon the annexures.
Honorable Senators, we have that report which Senator Kajwang has indicated he does not have sufficient information, and thankfully Senator Halwale has offered some of the information, but ideally there is the formal way of bringing that information to the floor of the House so that all senators have an opportunity. But I want to hear a few senators what their take is on the status of that report, so that I make a verdict or give a direction on how we proceed with the report being used as a basis for debate. So I'll ask a comment from Senator Danson Mungatana, who was next, followed by Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki.
So
they are commenting on whether the sufficiency of the report, so that I give a direction.
I'm guided, Madam Speaker, and I assume that my time will still be there for debate.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am of a different view, Madam Speaker, and maybe this is not a popular view, but Madam Speaker, if you are at the very beginning of this afternoon session, the Honorable Senator Boni Halwale gave a statement. And in that statement, he gave a very lengthy presentation of the process that took place and of the report that was there. Madam Speaker, if my colleagues were there at the very beginning and they were listening, the information that was there, I'm convinced, is sufficient for us to proceed with the debate. And Madam Speaker, if we are not happy, if somebody is not sufficiently informed, we have the services of the Sergeant at Arms all over here who can give you any information you require. You just need to request. So my opinion, Madam Speaker, is that I may be wrong or I may be right, but I know for a fact that some constitutional office holders in the commission, the SRC, their term is coming to an end. And so we must not stagnate too much because there are 7 other appointees from other areas. We have been given 1 and we have 2 names. Looking at their qualifications, Madam Speaker, I may not know whether there was other things, but I am sufficiently informed, personally, I'm sufficiently informed to feel confident that when I make my remarks, they will be in support of a process that is very good. And Madam Speaker, the other thing is that if we are bringing to question a report by a committee, we must have some faith in what our colleagues are doing. Madam Speaker, the Finance Committee has been praised, and we have all the time praised them because of the work they are doing. I'm personally persuaded that the leadership which is there and the information they have given us, I have no reason to impugn unless there's other information that I don't have. But from where I stand, Madam Speaker, my humble opinion is that we proceed with this debate and conclude. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm a member of this Committee of Finance and Budget of the Senate, and I did participate in the whole process that resulted in this report. Madam Chair, first of all, Senator Shakila and I dissented on this report and recommendations. And even this morning, I did ask in the committee, I did make a comment that we had a dissenting opinion. Why is that dissenting opinion not captured in the report? Understanding order number 2 to 3, I think 5, says that a dissenting report, a dissenting opinion has to be captured in the report. A report having been appointed by a majority of senators, a minority or dissenting report may be appended to the report by any member or members of the committee. Madam Speaker, this has not been complied with. And as Senator Kajwanga said, the report is sketchy and doesn't show the true import of what transpired during the interviews. Chair, Mr. Speaker, now, it will not be prudent for us to continue the debate if those issues have not been considered. Thank you.
Senator Thangwa, it can't really be a point of order. There is no one on the floor unless it's a comment. All right, then you may comment on it.
Mr. Speaker, what we are witnessing now on the floor of this House today is one of the reasons why people are in the streets in this Republic of Kenya, because information is scanty, Mr. Speaker. We are not able to have information when vetting is going on. If you ask this country, you will only be told the vetting that was going on within this period was that of the CSs. The people probably did not have information. There was a vetting of these commissioners to represent the county government at SRC. But, Mr. Speaker, it is very sad for a member of this House to request for a postponement of a report that has been tabled, yet these vetting were open to the public, were open to the members of this House, and anybody who wanted to find out the nitty-gritties could have attended these sittings, Mr. Speaker. Because I am commenting on this, it is not a point of order. Just the way you have commented, I'm commenting on it. We are commenting so that we assist the Speaker to make a decision. And I would request, Mr. Speaker, to be heard in silence. We listen to the two gentlemen in silence, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my issue is that once a report has been tabled in office, on the table of the Senate, every member should be given an opportunity to discuss. If you reject, you reject it. If you support it, you support it. But the issue of stepping down a report that has been put on the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker, it will go against our standing orders, Mr. Speaker. If you did not have the report, you had enough time to request for that report. And they're there, the public documents, Mr. Speaker. But it is my prayer, Mr. Speaker, that this report, we continue debating, because we have so many people who will be having an opportunity to debate it. And I trust the committee, Mr. Speaker, that was mandated to do this kind of vetting. It is one of the committees that has been praised in this House, that has been doing their work diligently, Mr. Speaker. So I would go against those who are saying that we should start down the report, but I would urge you, Mr. Speaker, to rule that we continue the debate so that these people who have been nominated can have a chance to serve the people of this country.
Resume your seat, Senator Thangwa. You've been heard. Members, remember when Senator Thangwa indicated that he was rising on a point of order, I told him it was not. And unfortunately, Senator Mungatana had been asked to step down for an intervention that had come in. If that is exactly what had transpired prior to this intervention by Senator Thangwa. And so, honorable members, I am directing that even as we raise concerns about the content of this report and as to whether or not we will stand it down or we will defy it tomorrow, I will allow two more members to comment on it so that the chair issues a ruling as to the concerns that had been raised. I will give you members time to comment, but I need to just give directions that if we will ultimately have to make a decision as to how to treat this report, there isn't need for us to spend the entire of the afternoon when we saying the report is scanty and we need additional documents on the basis of the objections that Senator Kajwang had raised. And so what I'll do, honorable members, as I said, I'll give direction so that we are able to proceed in an orderly manner and deal with the report appropriately. So I will, I'm giving directions, and I want to give an opportunity to unlock this stalemate, particularly on the issue that had been raised to Senator Dr. Boni Halwale, so that out of it, he is the mover of that particular motion. Honorable members, Senator Olekina, Boni Halwale is not contributing. He has already spoken to the motion. I wanted us to unlock the stalemate so that we take directions appropriately. Allow Senator Boni so that we progress in a civilized manner, honorable members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to associate myself with the sentiments and concerns by colleagues senators that they want the full report. There's no way you can debate a decision of a committee of parliament without proper information being availed to you as a senator or a member of parliament. So Senator Kajwang is right. Mr. Speaker, I also want to associate myself with the remarks by the Senator of Mombasa, Senator Faki. He's a member of this committee just like myself. He's right when he tells the House that there were 2 members who dissented, Senator Faki and Senator Sakila. It's a fact. The other 2 members, Mr. Speaker, whose vote is not recorded, did not attend the process at all. So the people who signed adopted the report, and the 2 who dissented were only 2. And when the matter was raised before the committee, Mr. Speaker, the member was reminded that they failed upon dissenting to request for the dissenting view to be part of the record. And usually, as you know, according to procedure, Senator Kajwang, Senator Olentema, Senator Wambua, dissent is normally signed. So let it rest there. And now let me come to the substantive issue by Kajwang which concerns me.
Senator Boni.
Mr. Speaker,
Senator Boni.
the report which I have.
Senator Boni.
Yes.
Just listen to the chair. Do you confirm that the report that your committee tabled and the one you tabled before the House is a complete report?
I want
just that question. Answer me.
I want
yes
to confirm.
Or no.
I want to confirm, Mr.
Proceed. Just
kindly.
directly do that confirmation.
Which is what I wanted to say substantively. The report of the committee is here. It is complete. It has got the documents of the candidates. It has got annexures of everything. The only problem is that the clerk did not circulate.
So, Honorable Boni, you have answered my question.
Thank you.
Now take your seat. Take your seat, Senator. In the situation we are in right now, I will give directions with that confirmation from Senator Boni, but before I do that, I will only allow one other member from this end, Senator Olekina. Give your comments. You have listened to the answer to my question by Senator Boni. I would then expect you not to go beyond a specific comment on the report, as it has been confirmed that it was complete, but for the Secretariat not availing all the documentations on the document that is tabled.
Mr. Speaker, the reason why the public is throwing rotten eggs on our faces is because of this kind of behavior. Mr. Speaker, Senator Kajwang has raised pertinent issues, which brought your chair to be able to say, let us not continue contributing to this debate on whether to confirm these 2 individuals or to stand down the report. Mr. Speaker, if you look at what we have been provided, what has been circulated to us, it is basic cut and paste. It is the role of the Senate. What is the role of the Senate? It is the SRC. Cut and paste. And then you come and tell us that you are forwarding 2 individuals, when we have credible information that the entire process was flawed. Mr. Speaker, that is one of the things that I will not tolerate. Mr. Speaker, when you look at what is happening, you will not come short of saying everything which was done there was tribal. How on earth do we reject a former senator who the university, through some shoddy process, submitted wrong information, which that amount to discrimination? Because you say this was not our student, and then later on you come in and say this is our student. Mr. Speaker, my view is this. I sat on the health committee when we were confirming the director of medical services. We went through volumes of documents, and those volumes of documents, we transmitted them again to the floor of this House. In fact, after this debate we have right now, there'll be a motion which will be put by my colleague, Senator Okanyuri, to be able to discuss the issue of Dr. Amoth. So, Mr. Speaker, this issue is very clear. This process is flawed, and the only way for us to maintain the integrity of this House is for the entire House to be given an opportunity to go through the documentation, because I personally also have an interest